Okay, all right. I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name's Mike Morgan. I'm the chair of APA DC. Want to thank everybody for joining us and thank our speakers. So we've got Leo Tucker and Keller Linder. We'll be letting Barry Harley, another board member from DC, will be introducing them. But I wanted to say a couple quick things about APA. So in case you've just you're new to APA and you've just found out about us through this event. We're a nonprofit trade organization that's built for photographers. But our mission statement is that it's to advocate, educate, and elevate the professional photographic community. I have a couple of things I wanted to announce. We're the DC chapter. We are launching a grant for photographers who identify as LGBTQIAP+, and that's launching on Friday. It's a $3,000 grant. And we're really proud to be launching that during Pride Month. If you self-identify within those categories, or you know a photographer who might be interested in the grant, please send them to our website, apadc.com, to find out about the grant and apply for it. We're really looking forward to being able to give that out. Also want to mention that nationally, APA's awards are going on right now. That the deadline is on June 23rd, and I actually have a coupon code I'll put in the chat that gets $20 off of any entry, and then and if you're a leadership level, then you get a free entry in there. And I've won the award categories a couple times, and I can say it's really great. It's well worth entering. It's one of the less expensive contests that you can enter out there, and I mean, I got some major jobs out of it, and the prizes are pretty sweet, and highly recommend. So make sure you take a look for that, apanational.org. Okay, and I'll go ahead and introduce Barry Harley. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I'm one of the board members on APA. Just want to thank you all for coming out to this. We know as creatives, we have a brain block sometimes when it comes to the financial side. So we wanted to demystify, clarify, and understand. So I'm going to start with Keller. Instead of me going through all of her baby photos and telling you how wonderful she is, just want to hear, Keller, how did you get into the creative field and then switch to financial? We'll start with you.
Well, thank you, Barry. I honestly came into the art space like from a long line of family members who have been in the art space for their entire lives. And so I actually went to college for technical theatrical lighting design. And that's actually what brought me to DC about 15 years ago. And as I realized, working through this career in the fine arts, I realized that finances were really not something that I knew a whole lot about. And so going through my own path of like learning more about, what I needed in order to self-sustain my business, my freelancing, all the things that came along with it. I learned that this was something that interests me a lot. And so, just transitioning from that into a little bit of early education as well, learning about how to educate others. It kind of dovetailed nicely into now what I do, which is basically holistic financial planning for anybody that I work with, which honestly has been wonderful because I've been able to maintain, the experience of storytelling on a daily basis, creative design with the clients that I work with, tailoring education for these individuals that I'm working with. And then, of course, bringing joy to those that I work with, which has been something that has been interesting to me for a very long time. But anyway, living in the DC area, it's been really, really great to meet others that work in, the arts space, whether it's photography, writing, people in the theater, graphic artists, et cetera. Like all of these individuals are primarily people that I work with because I just want to make sure that we're bringing finances into the center in a place that's, shame-free, guilt-free, talking about it in a safe space is I think, super important.
Perfect. So, Mr. Tucker, yeah, we get to you with your 30 years of Northwestern Mutual and being here in the DC area, all your accolades and the things that you've done for the community. So, for 30 years, you've been with Northwestern Mutual. Were you always doing Northwestern Mutual?
No, interestingly enough, so I hate to say it, and I sound even old. It's 31 years now. But I, after college, went to New York City because I thought that's what all kids were supposed to do, and worked at Saks Fifth Avenue as a recruiter for their corporate headquarters. And I traveled around the country recruiting primarily entry-level buyers and floor merchandisers that we'd place in different stores around the country, and had a chance to both train, and the path was for me to consider, going into the buying route myself. Buying in the retail space is not as glamorous as, Fashion Week makes it look. It's much more floor space and dollar per square footage and, metrics and spreadsheets than it is looking at a, Louis Vuitton, outfit that you're going to choose to buy for the spring collection. It is not that romantic for me. And so as a result, I pivoted. I moved out of retail and was exploring different opportunities and found that I have a proclivity for helping people. It's what drives me. I consider it my purpose. And this great career gave me an opportunity to do well by doing good for others. And I got into it 31 years ago and have never looked back.
Perfect. So we don't have a lot of time, and so that's why I'm going to switch gears. I would love to. I was telling Keller, I would love to sit down with you and do the whole David Letterman guest thing, but we don't have time to dissect both of your lives. So freelancers we have and creatives we have, I think generally, I'm going to speak generally, and they're probably going to knock me over the head later, but we have an issue with finances and then planning for the future. I don't know what that is. I don't know why that is, but that's why we have to talk with financial planners like you and Keller to sort of help us to prioritize and organize ourselves, and let us know and start this off. How can you help us?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'll share why this is really passionate to me, specifically with this group. I wanted 5 daughters as a family. I got one who's awesome. She is a professional photographer. So she went to college to be a photographer. She's considering going to some grad work in photography. And she moved to New York and has her own photography business. So in moving from adulting to supporting this notion of creatives, particularly in the photography space, I understand the model. I understand the challenges with the variable income and the challenges that I experience in working with my daughter and making sure she has both a sustainable practice, but at the same time has a predictable income downstream so that she can plan for, invest, and do all those other things. So where I think we can be helpful is there's 2 components to this conversation, really, Barry. One are just basic financial planning. Just similar to photography, there are some basic rules you have to appreciate if you're going to be a successful photographer. If you're going to have a successful financial future platform, there are some basics that I'm more than happy to share with you. Keller is the expert, content expert on this particular call. And so that's one component, Barry. The next one is really figuring out, and this is for a different meeting, and I'm more than happy to help with it, but as a business owner, understanding scale, capacity, and renewable income streams. How do you turn a relationship into an annuity? The reason why attorneys get such a bad rap is because once you hire one, that they're like a tick. They're going to be around forever. And that's how their model works. And I would suggest that in photography, there are ways to build the business that can create a little bit more predictable income flow. And so, but that's a topic for another day. We're here to talk primarily about creating a financial plan for you personally and perhaps even for your business.
So you're going to get multiple calls, Keller, right after this about what? Can I get that tick guy? Who is this tick thing?
More than happy to be helpful, for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, help us out, Keller and Leo. What do we need to know? Where do we start?
Yeah.
And we're talking about starting from people that coming out of college, I don't have any money. How do I put money down? If I can't find the money to pay the rent normally, or I'm not able to take my $10,000 job that I just did and spread it out over, yeah.
So here's what I'd like to do, Barry. At the end of the day, as I look at all these tiles on my screen, represent a fingerprint. Each and every one of your financial situations is different. Your ambitions are different. Your goals are different. As a result, one of the things I recommend, similar to our physical fitness and or our medical health, you need to have a conversation with a consultant about your specific situation. However, we can't do that with each and every person here right now. So I do want to share some basics. And I think this sort of level sets financial planning. And hopefully my goal is that it nudges you to reach out to a professional and have a conversation about your specific situation. So if any of this, any tips for getting volume on this, I can't hear. I can't help you with that one. I'll leave it to Barry's team to do that. But I'm going to share my screen for a minute or two, and I'm going to go over some very basics. Most of this you already know, but I would encourage you as I go through these slides to think about where are my gaps? Where are some of the areas that I need to pay attention to? And then I'll come back and maybe answer some questions as they come in the chat. And Keller is like I said, the content expert. So I hope you guys get a chance to visit with her or reach out and schedule an appointment with her. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and just give me a thumbs up if you can see that, Barry. Perfect. So these are just some basics, and I'm just going to spend some time. So the first question we like to ask our clients to make sure that it's very custom is, what do you really want for your future? Futures, whether we like it or not, have to be financed. And so that is, in my opinion, the most important question is, what do you want for your future? Now, there's big future and little future. Big future is long-term. Little future, I consider 3 years. So it's just the year after next. And that's where I think most plans should begin, is making sure that you have a 3-year vision for what you want. The next thing is, there are 8 questions, and I'm going to send these to you, Barry, to send to your members, but there are 8 questions that really assess your level of financial fitness. And when you go through those, you'll get an idea of what you know and what you don't know. And I think that'll be real helpful, but that should be done in private. And that'll generate some more curiosity out of most of the people here. But at the end of the day, this is what financial planning is. I know a lot of people think that it's much more complex and sophisticated, but it's really, really, really simple. You have to pay attention to what you're saving, what you're spending, what you want to grow for long term, what you need to protect, and then I'm charitably minded, what you might want to give. You're part of an organization. I know that the current president just mentioned some grant opportunities. That should be a component in anybody's financial plan. So saving is, it's simple. How do you start to build a savings plan? And savings plans are not just one size fits all. They're for your unique needs, and they do a couple things. So how much should you save is what everybody asks. I believe everybody should carve 20% off of the top of every dollar they earn for tomorrow. It's the old adage, pay yourself first. Well, that pay should be 20%. Depending on your age, this number could go up or could start lower. But as a general rule of thumb, 20% is a good number. Another question is, do you have an emergency fund? This one, most people sadly answer no. And I would assume it's even more of a challenge in the creative space, but I would highly encourage that everyone think about this. An emergency fund should usually be somewhere between 3 months of general living expenses, so that if you hit a wall, snag, some sort of unexpected event, you have some cushion that will provide some planning opportunity or runway. The fight, flight, or fear, when somebody's in a tough, high stress situation, it can happen with our finances too, and we can make bad decisions. But having a cushion, a 3-month to 6-month emergency fund, actually is really helpful, because there will always be unexpected expenses. I don't want to drain this slide. I think you all know that. But that's a general guideline, is 6 months of living expenses. Then there's spend. This is my favorite part. I'm a spender. But the way I've been able to save is I carve out a really structured savings plan for myself. And the reason I love doing that is then I can spend and blow the rest. And I'm really good at that. But I wouldn't have that comfort level at blowing the rest if I didn't know that my savings plan was bulletproof. And so that's the piece I don't violate, so that I can spend guilt-free and spend on whatever matters to me. And so the way we do that is we start to track our expenses. One of the most difficult conversations we have with individuals isn't the process of tracking their expenses. It's what the client or prospect learns after they take a look at how they're spending money. Most of us don't realize that there's a lot of what I call nickel and dime creep. Starbucks here, movie popcorn there, which seems to cost $40 these days. God knows there's inflation right now. Regardless, we think we're spending X, but we're usually spending Y. And it requires some discipline to track those. There's tons of great apps to do that I think are fantastic. More than happy to recommend some that we encourage. But that first look should be with an advisor, somebody who can help. And so the rule is you save 20, 60% you get to blow, 20% should be for discretionary expenses. That's entertainment, clothing, personal care. So that sort of makes sense there. Grow, that has to do with investing. So once you've created a savings plan, once you understand your expenses, then we can start to be strategic. Most people want to put the cart in front of the horse and start growing some money tomorrow. But that's like putting the roof on a house before you've poured a foundation. So grow literally is a third or fourth step component in building a sound financial plan. And for those of you who are young, that I'm extremely jealous of, what's more important than return is time. It's much easier to become a millionaire if you're 20 today than if you're 55, which is my age, because you have the luxury of time. And so even if you start saving a small amount and building the discipline around saving, you will be shocked at where you find yourself in a relatively short period of time. The most challenging meetings for us is when we have to sit down with somebody in their mid to late 50s who has done no savings or planning, and they have a short window by which to work, because now we have limited time to help them accomplish their goals. So certainly you want to make sure you pay attention to time. And then you want to get some expert guidance. I hire photographers all the time, and I think I'm a pretty good photographer, but when I watch what Barry does, it just blows my mind. It reminds me that there are places that are important that require professional content. Your work is certainly one of those, and so is ours. It does require some professional content to give you context. And then you've got to pay attention to protection. I've helped my daughter along the way with some photography equipment. That stuff is not inexpensive. And I'm always like, how do we insure this stuff? I don't want you dropping it in the subway someday and all of a sudden we're out another $5,000 on a Sony, Alpha, whatever, or whatever Canon she's using today. But your life has to be protected as well. You've got to pay attention to protecting your income. You've got to pay attention to protecting your human life value if somebody else is dependent on you for income. And we can kind of walk you through how to do that. And so here are some of the things you have to protect. I think the first thing to protect is your income stream, because it's also the most vulnerable. Most people don't know this, but the number one reason for foreclosures in America are disabilities. Disabilities cause loss of income. Most people aren't protected, and therefore their income goes away, and so does everything else. So look at it this way. You have a golden goose that lays a lot of golden eggs. Your income makes that the golden goose. And shouldn't you protect the goose? Everybody protects the eggs, the things we buy, our house, our equipment, so on and so forth. But it's really the goose that's responsible for all those things that needs to be protected. So we encourage people to look at disability insurance. So I won't get into that too much because I want to get to Q&A. And then you obviously want to protect your life if others are dependent on you, or you want to make certain contributions in the world. And then what causes matter most to you. there are things that people care passionately about that they want to make sure they're making a contribution to right now, today, or leave a legacy, and there are ways to do that. And so we help in that conversation as well. So those are the 5 key actions. If you meet with a financial advisor, it's no cost, of course, but they're going to walk you through those 5 to get an idea of where you are and what it is that you want to get accomplished. And so I will stop sharing so that I can be more custom in some of the responses or thoughts people might have about what I've just shared and some basics. But again, I'll end where I started, and then I'll see if Keller has anything to add, which is the real value is having a conversation about it. It's almost like financial therapy. So you can feel okay and exhale that you're going to be fine. It's like, you know that there's a problem, but you avoid going to the doctor, and you wait another year, and you wait another year, and you wait another year, and then you're like, ooh, this is really getting bad. I'm just saying, get a financial checkup early so you can avoid anything bad. Keller, what would you add?
Honestly, you tied it up with a bow. This is amazing. But yeah, definitely would echo. I was in a place where I was really struggling to figure out where to put money. And meeting with a financial advisor totally changed that landscape for me. So even just, realizing what's on the, horizon, what's on the landscape currently, and trying to match those things together was crucial for me to get further into that career.
Great. Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Keller. If you have questions, it would be nice if you put them in the chat. That would make it a little easier for us to sort of be a little organized about this. And I know for some freelancers and us, this is a good, and creatives, this is a good kind of quick home visit by the doctor, as it were, so that we can realize we can do something tomorrow, today, because some of us get big jobs, but we don't know what to do with the cash. So here we have a couple of questions in here.
Yeah, I saw those, Barry. A conversation with Keller costs nothing. At worst, you buy her a cup of coffee. But, Keller's in this profession to help people. And there are times where she has conversations where the person can go DIY, do it themselves. And there's sometimes where they're going to want Keller's help. But you'll never write a check to Keller. If she can help you in some way, the profession basically compensates her. So, and the reason I think Keller is unique for our conversation is she is a creative. She understands the variability of the world in which you guys live in. And I think she's much more sensitive to that reality than your traditional financial planner.
Yeah, I like that because I use a financial planner. He is with Northwestern Mutual, Mr. Danny Lee. And sometimes it does feel, as you said, there shouldn't be any shame about it, but freelancers, we don't have the same kind of income stability like everybody else. So it's kind of sometimes awkward saying, hey, I get this lump of cash, but I may not work for another 2 months because I have that much of cash. So yeah, those questions are good. So Keller, it's going to be awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, and just like Leah said, every tile here represents, a fingerprint, and everybody has different, experiences, different goals, different things that they want to achieve. And so having an individualized conversation can really help, steward that path, to greatness, on every level. So more than happy to meet for, 20-minute or so introductory conversation. Again, it doesn't cost you anything, but more or less just wanting to be a support and a resource based on where you are, where I'm meeting you, and just starting things, right? Can't get anywhere unless you start.
And I think some of us are at good, but there's some questions you have Leo and Keller here, which is probably easier to get Keller, but harder to get Leo. But there's some questions you may want to ask him. Hey, what am I hearing in the news? Is this recession thing going to happen? How do we insulate ourselves from that? Is the market makers shifting things around? What are they doing? If you are in a certain place, some of these questions we can ask if we're at that level, or if we're not even at that level. So we have all of that here that we can run some questions by Leo and Keller and sort of get some quick feedback from.
So was there a question in that, Barry?
No, I wasn't going to throw all that stuff. I was just saying if some people may be a little more sophisticated in their financial journey that they want to ask some of those questions. So if they wanted to shoot some of those out, just to
I will tell you, again, a reason why it's so important to have a conversation, and I'll sort of end on this, is as I travel and people find out what I do, I get the weirdest questions. And those questions might be, hey, Leo, what do you think of Bitcoin? Hey, Leo, what do you think of NFTs? Or whatever the hot topic is of the day. And I always say, I don't care. And the reason I say I don't care isn't that I don't care, but it's equivalent to asking a doctor, hey, what do you think of penicillin? It's an irrelevant question unless the doctor knows what your health situation is and what your blood profile looks like. And I can give you a random commentary on Bitcoin, but it might not be appropriate for you. It might cause a rash. Do you know what I'm saying? Based on somebody's individual risk profile. And so the world's job is to throw a ton of information. Content is not a limited resource right now. And so with that overwhelming amount of content, the question is, what makes sense for what I want out of life? Because what I want out of life is going to be different than what you want out of life, Barry. I mean, there's some similarities because we're all part of the human race, but at the end of the day, everyone needs a custom plan. And so are there any tips for planning income side of the equation? For example, how to build diverse revenue? Yes, that's a topic for a different discussion. I would love to talk to you guys again, if possible, just on growing a business, if that's a thing, and how to take advantage of creating scale and leverage to create a much more diverse income stream, even for creatives. I think I have some ideas there that I'm certainly working on with my daughter. So I'm more than happy to share that. I'm a capitalist at heart, so I would like to see all of you succeed wildly.
Okay, so I see this is the part 2. Nice. I like it, Leo. You set this up. We could do a part 2 about expansion and growth of business. Someone was asking, what are the long-term savings vehicles you recommend? IRA, SEP, individual stocks? And I'm sure you're going to give me that same answer that you did before.
Yeah, again, it's like I don't know the person's age, don't know how much they've already saved, don't know what their particular time horizons are, their risk profile, what they're looking to accomplish with those dollars. All great questions, by the way. So I don't want to take that away, but the context of answering it comes from a conversation where an advisor can get a better idea of what's in it for you. Here's the mistake that a lot of advisors make. They want to move a certain amount of product, so they try to fit their product into your needs. We do it reverse. We have no bias as to what you might need. We need to find out first what you want, what your situation is, like I said, your blood panel, if you will, and then we'll customize the recommendations to exactly what it is that is going to accomplish your goals. The biggest mistake people make in financial planning is getting with a financial institution that has a bias to sell you X, regardless of what it is that you want. That's to me criminal. We just don't do that. Keller doesn't do that. However, I know that I have to run. I'm going to leave Keller here to be amazing, as she always is. Barry, always good to see you. Mike, thank you for letting us crash your party. And I will hopefully get to see and spend some time with you guys again. But I wish all of you the best of success as photographers.
All right. Thanks, Leo.
Bye, Leo.
Cool. So there was a question that I think Mike sent it to me, but I'll just, what's the difference between the IRA, SEP, and et cetera. So that's what he was asking.
So the differences between them, they're all IRAs and SEPs and all of those kinds of things are all geared specifically towards retirement. And it really depends on, what kind of business you've set up, or if you haven't, on which you can actually have access to. And so again, like Leo said, it's all very individualized as far as like what would be the right direction to go. But the way that we look at retirement savings is basically looking at your taxable income and doing a bit of the numbers around what would be the most appropriate for you based on today and when your retirement date will be coming.
Yeah, so this is a good conversation because I think some of us probably were afraid to talk to financial advisors. Now it's probably realized if you have an accountant, a lawyer, you need a financial advisor. for this future and sometimes immediate planning.
Mm-hmm.
Someone had a question about good rule of thumb for diversifying your investment, and I think can you see that, Keller?
I can.
Yeah.
I can. So the rule of thumb for diversifying your investments particularly is based on your appetite for risk, your timeline in which you want to use those dollars. And so when we look at diversifying maybe a mutual fund rather than trying to pick and choose different stocks and bonds, typically in the creative space, I've found that a lot of individuals that I work with really want to focus on their art, want to focus on building their business, and maybe take less of a front seat on how to diversify their portfolios. So that's why conversations with individuals like myself will help, because essentially the analogy that I like to use a lot is some people choose to go and cook in the kitchen. They, buy their own ingredients, they make a mess, they eat, they clean up. It's a lot of work, but you are in the front seat. Whereas I know a lot of people who love to go to the restaurant, point to the item on the menu and say, yes, please, right? And then pay the bill and get out. And so in the sense of how I like to help people is figuring out, where on that scale do you fit, and how can I best support you in terms of just what you want to diversify into and how to approach your general investing.
I think there's another one down there. Is there a part to diversifying income through licensing? Ooh.
Wow. So that is a very specific question, Sarah. Yeah. I would love to take that offline with you. But as far as like diversifying income through licensing, that would also, be a great question for, an attorney to make sure that you're getting things, organized in a proper way in order to do that. As far as like starting from zero, it really just depends on what that content is and how we would want to push that out. Great question.
Are there some softwares that you like Stash or Mint, that help someone in that zero space?
Yeah. So as far as like looking at cash flow and budgeting and keeping an eye on where money is going and at what rate, I have a lot of people that love Mint. The interface is really easy. It starts to auto categorize things so that you can monitor things on a week-to-week or a month-to-month basis. It's great for quarterly taxes. And you go back and you look at how much you've spent, how much did you set aside, how much have you earned, as well as at the end of the year. QuickBooks is also really great. Obviously, that would cost a little bit, but a lot of business owners and people in the freelance space really like QuickBooks so that they're able to keep things organized, especially for taxes. Northwestern Mutual actually has their own interface as well. It works similar to Mint, but those would be the top ones, but there are a ton out there. It really just is a trial and error type of approach where you should just go try things out, see how it works. If it doesn't work, throw it out, try something new.
Good. We usually try to keep these things to 30 minutes. I think we're down to the 30 minutes. That was like a speed dating financial.
I know. Pretty exciting. And so I think where we could maybe end or at least share some more information is I am available via email, or if you guys want to text, I'll give you my cell phone. You can text me directly and we can set up a time for like a 15 or 20 minute speed dating event, right? Where we get to know one another and see how we can best support you and where you are. And if it's, starting to come up with a financial plan for you now, or, shooting for a different time down the line, like totally fine. More than happy to do that. Would that be of interest?
I'm sure that will. Yes, some of them are saying thank you. That would be great. So we will have to figure out how we send that out. There you go.
I'm putting it in the chat.
Yes, perfect.
I'm going to put my cell phone number as well. So feel free to shoot over a text with your name and any sort of other details you would want to share as far as like a good time for us to hop on a quick phone call or a Zoom. More than happy to do so. But yeah, it's a free conversation with free advice. I don't know why you wouldn't, but...
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. And we thank everyone for coming. I'm going to turn this back over to Mike.
Excellent.
Thank you again to everybody for joining us, and to Keller and to Leo and to Barry for leading the event. And again, just want to remind folks about our LGBTQIAP plus grant, and also make sure you check out the APA awards. And thank you all for joining us. All right, take care, everybody.